Welcome to North Carlingford, everybody. My name is Katie Mullins and I'm the Liberal candidate for Parramatta, and it's fantastic to be joined by my colleagues here in our electorate, and wonderful to welcome Mr. Peter Dutton, our federal leader, back to Parramatta because he cares so much about Western Sydney and the area that I call home. We're at the service station today talking to people about our plan to cut the fuel excise by half for the next 12 months. What that means is by voting Liberal, you'll be saving 25 cents a litre on your petrol. That's immediate relief that we'll bring in as soon as we get into government. It's real cost of living relief that will ease pressure on household budgets, and that's particularly important in places like Parramatta, where a lot of people drive to work, drop their kids off at school. It's a commuter area, and so a huge impact here. And as we've been out at the service station, that's what we've been hearing from people, that saving 25 cents a litre off their petrol will have a real impact on their day-to-day lives. And that's what we're doing with the Liberal Party. We care about people's budgets, we care about how they're suffering under the cost of living crisis, and we're working hard to make sure that we make lives easier for everyone in Western Sydney and Parramatta. We've got some exciting announcements about upgrades to our road and infrastructure, particularly including in Parramatta, and these announcements make a big difference, and it means that people will be spending less time on the roads and more time at home around the dinner tables with their families. And I'm going to hand over to Melissa McIntosh, who will give us some more details about that.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's great to have Peter back here in Western Sydney and Bridget here with Team Western Sydney, and our announcement today, investment into Western Sydney road infrastructure, is all about why we're here today. People in Western Sydney drive their cars to get to and from work, to get their kids to school, and right now the roads are just not up to scratch. The Albanese Labor government ripped $2 billion of road funding away from the people of Western Sydney. We're making sure that we're putting that money back because people need it. We have highly congested roads. We have an international airport due to open in 1 year's time, and the roads around that airport are currently pothole roads, and these are going to be major freight roads. So our investment, where we've announced $200 million, bringing our total investment to $1.7 billion for the people of Western Sydney, is about fixing the road infrastructure for everyday families living in Western Sydney, right here in Parramatta, right out to Blacktown, investment into Blacktown, investment into Penrith, and investment into Southwest Sydney. We care about Western Sydney, and that's why we have Team Western Sydney and Peter back here today. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks very much, Mel. Well, fantastic to be here with Bridget McKenzie and with Melissa McIntosh, as well as Sam Cale. And Katie, to you, thank you very much for knocking on doors, for working so hard. And there is a real choice at this election. There's a choice about how we can better manage our economy. We just can't afford as a country, as a family, as a society, the continuation of the last 3 years, particularly in a minority government, would be a disaster for families. As we've seen here in the small business, an amazing multi-generational small business, people have worked hard, but their stories are, I think, reflective of what's happening across Western Sydney, but indeed across the country, where people are just really struggling to make ends meet. It's hard to find an extra 30% for your grocery bills under Mr Albanese. It's harder to find 34% more for your gas, which is the cost that's gone up by under Mr Albanese. Electricity's up by 32%. Rents are obviously up by almost 20%. It's a really tough time for Australians, and at this election it's about who do you trust to manage the economy, and if you have good economic managers in charge, you can deal with the cost of living crisis. You can also deal with the realities of the world as well. We live in a very uncertain time. We have to have a strong economy, and the basis of a strong economy is making the decisions that will help. So we have announced a 25 cent a litre reduction in the fuel tax. So that means every time a family in Western Sydney or across the country fuels up, from day one of a coalition government, they will see about a $14 difference in the price, the cost to fuel up their tank. And if you're travelling 45 minutes an hour into work and back each day, if you're then running the kids around and the grandkids around, if you're a small business owner, whoever you are purchasing fuel, either petrol or diesel or unleaded in our community, you benefit with our 25 cent a litre reduction. Mr Albanese is promising a 70 cent a day cut in your tax, but it doesn't start until 15 months' time, and I think families need support right now. So that's where I think this election will be fought, and I think Australians understand that there is a big difference between the two parties, and only the coalition can manage the economy effectively, and that's certainly what we've demonstrated when we've been in government. It's what we'll demonstrate after the next election as well. Now we might start on this side, and then we'll go around. Marty, right at the back.
On same job, same pay. You said yesterday you're not going to repeal it. Big business is a bit worried about that, and it's interesting for you and Labor be on the same page about neither of you are going to change that legislation for the next term. Are you undermining sort of liberal values, and are you disappointing business who's really been lobbying on that to change?
Well, we're the party of making sure that we can manage the economy effectively, and we want to create an environment where people are able to expand their businesses and where families can afford to live again. I want to make sure that small businesses and bigger businesses, but pensioners and families as well, can get a 25 cent a litre cut in the fuel price that they pay at the bowser every time that they fuel up. And that's what we're offering at this election. The Prime Minister's offering 70 cents a litre, 70 cents a day. It's just not going to cut it. Families have gone back by $50,000 under this government. I think there's more pain out there than what Australians realise, and that's what we're focused on at the moment.
Mr Dutton, you said you're putting in a new order for F-35s to win the election, but you also said yesterday you would put our defence relationship with the US, you would use that as leverage. Would that order for F-35s be part of any larger grand deal with Trump to remove tariffs?
Well, just to be clear in relation to where I think the opportunity is, I guess two examples. I mean, one is the international agreement that we arrived at, that we negotiated with the US and the UK for AUKUS, which is going to be underpinning our security for the next century. That there's been a lot of concentration on the submarine element of that, but there's a lot that's being done or needs to be done in Pillar 2. Certainly we'd envisaged that would happen. And there's opportunity there for us to purchase more from our allies, including the United States, and for them to purchase more from us. In relation to the Guided Weapons Explosive Ordnance, the GWEO program that we have, that is about keeping our country safe. The government has defunded that program, and there are components in the assembly line that can be purchased from Australian companies, and there are weapons systems obviously that we can purchase from the United States. So that's why I think there's a mutual interest to be found in the discussion with the United States, but you can't have that discussion if the Prime Minister of the day can't get a phone call or a meeting with the President of the United States. And the Prime Minister and his colleagues have been, talking a big game, but why haven't they been talking this game from January 20? It was well known to the Albanese government that there was going to be a tariff imposition. When we were in government last, we negotiated for Australia to be exempt, and this Prime Minister has failed that test. The precedent was there for it to happen. It hasn't happened, and I think that's the difference between the two parties. We have a lot that we can bring to the table to enhance the relationship, and I think that's what Australia.
So are you saying you wouldn't go ahead with certain elements of AUKUS Pillar 2 until you would secure that?
No, I want to go ahead with more. I think there is more opportunity in the relationship. I made the point yesterday about the surface fleet. When you look at what the Japanese are doing with the Americans, they're able to provide sustainment of their fleet because the Americans can't keep up with their surface fleet servicing. So there are so many opportunities. The government's missed every one. The Prime Minister hasn't spoken about this at all. I spoke about critical minerals last year, and I spoke about it in January again this year. We are a reliable partner for the United States, but the government hasn't done anything in this regard. So you need to look at offtake agreements, you need to look at stockpiles, you need to look at every component of what that deal looks like, but this Prime Minister hasn't been able to do that. So I think there is upside in the relationship for both the United States and Australia. I want to get the 10% tariff off because there are small businesses. Mums staying at home who've created a small business from nothing in their garage or in their back bedroom. They're exporting to the United States, and other companies that are much bigger, and I spoke to some of those yesterday. I want to make sure that we can expand our economy, and That's why a Liberal government, a coalition government, will always be better
So
for
Mr.
families and for our
Dutton, just to be clear on this point, are you saying you would tailor some of our defence spending, some of our defence priorities to win favour with Donald Trump on tariffs?
I'm saying that the obvious point that when the Prime Minister says that we live in the most precarious period since the end of the Second World War, and that he takes 80 billion out of defence, that's not keeping us safe. So we will acquire capability and we will provide support to the Australian Defence Force with one objective in mind, and that is to keep us safe. But I think our interests align with the United States. We buy the F-35s from the United States. The Labor Party cut that program. We have guaranteed that we will have another squadron of F-35s because it's in our country's best interests. What I think has happened is I don't think the Australian Prime Minister has been able to make the US President aware of the opportunities that exist in our relationship, and that's why every Australian is worse off under this government, and now including those who export. And I want to make sure that we can keep our country strong, and we'll do that through good economic management.
Peter Dutton.
Mr. Dutton, you're here talking about fuel excise, but can I ask you about tobacco excise?
Sure.
They were supposedly being sold inside. The budget showed there was a $1.6 billion drop in tobacco excise in just 3 months. Because a lot of Australian smokers are turning to the black market. It's tens of billions of dollars now in lost revenue. What would you do to fix the problem given the smoking rates are pretty?
Well, we can't pretend that smoking rates have reduced because people obviously are buying a black market product. That is obvious, and particularly teenagers, and that's something that we're dead against. So we should be doing everything we can to reduce smoking rates in our country because it's obvious that particularly for young people who are developing an early habit, there are obvious health consequences, and I just repeat that message to every Australian that smoking is a bad option. What we would do though, which I think would be quite different from the government, is that we wouldn't allow the bikies who are in lockstep with the CFMEU to continue to run the illegal illicit tobacco market. We would clamp down and we would make sure that, as we did in government, the outlaw motorcycle gangs know they don't have a place in our society. They are the ones importing the product, they are the ones distributing it, they're the ones responsible for firebombing tobacco shops, etc. And that's an obvious response.
Peter Dutton.
It's been a week since you said that it would be soon that the modelling for your gas policy was released in terms of the effect on electricity prices. When can we expect that to be made?
Claire, it's almost here, so just be patient.
Days,
be patient,
weeks.
and the anticipation's building up. The message is that our policy, our energy policy, will, over the long run, be much cheaper than Labor's. That's obvious. And
so will it show?
If you have gas, natural gas, which is a huge part of generating electricity in our country, if that can come down, then we can reduce across the community, across the economy, not just for families, the cost of electricity and the cost of gas, which is a significant element in the creation of almost everything you see around you in the built environment. So we want to bring the cost of everything down, which we can do if we have a gas policy which is for Australians, and that is part of our energy policy, and we'll hear more of that shortly.
So Peter Dutton, you say that there's more information to come on your gas plan, but here we've got a centrepiece policy on cost of living to cut the fuel excise. Why has it taken until now for you to hold a press conference at a petrol station to spruik this?
Well, we've spoken about this from budget night, and that's, I think, a game changer in terms of family budgets. If you vote for Mr Albanese at the next election, you'll get higher interest rates, you'll get higher electricity prices, you'll get higher gas prices, you'll get higher petrol prices into perpetuity under the Albanese government. What we're saying is that we believe that Australian families need help now, not in 15 months' time, and 25 cents a litre off every litre that you pump into your tank. If you're a 2-car family, it's about $30 a week, and that is a very significant savings for families, and I'm very pleased with what we've been able to offer.
YouGov polling today shows that your popularity is declining.
Okay. So this week, just what Claire's touching, this week you have given a few details, whether it is how your gas plan's going to get electricity bills down or how you're going to spend the health and education budgets. Why is there this delay on letting voters into the secret?
Well, we've got a month-long campaign, and there's a lot that we'll talk about over the course of this month, but the main message is, who can you trust at the next election to manage the economy effectively? Who can you trust to bring down the price of petrol? Mr Albanese is promising higher electricity prices, higher gas prices, higher petrol prices, and we are the party that will deliver that immediate relief to families and will provide medium term through more gas coming into the system, and longer term through our zero emissions energy system with nuclear power as the base load. Now that is a game changer for our country, and we'll talk about that every day between now and the election, because I don't believe that Australians can afford 3 more years of an Albanese government.
Mr. Dutton, your colleagues has told the ABC that there's been a cooling off of your relationship with Gina Reinhardt, and Hancock Prospecting has shared some stories that have been negative about your gas policy. Does it bother you that you've disappointed Gina Reinhardt?
Well, I don't. First point I'd make is that I have respect for Gina Reinhardt as Australia's most successful businesswoman. She employs thousands of Australians, and normally the Labor Party would celebrate that as well. There is an enormous contribution that the mining sector makes to Australia, and we just evidenced that yesterday in Western Australia. Without WA pumping as an economy, we aren't paying for roads here in Western Sydney, and we aren't paying for schools, and we aren't building tunnels and infrastructure without that revenue from the mining sector. And we'll have points of difference with many people, but that doesn't mean that it impacts your friendship or your relationship with different business people. So that's a responsibility.
Mr. Dutton, there's a story today that your colleague Senator McKenzie could be dumped to the backbench depending on the results of the election. Can you give a guarantee that on that?
Well, how could you dump somebody like Senator McKenzie, who's a fantastic shadow minister, was a great minister in government, and will be a great minister in the next coalition government as well. But all of that's for another day. I think what we're concentrating on today and what people are more interested in is the coalition's policy to better manage the economy, to bring the cost of fuel down by 25 cents a litre, and families should hear that. That's our offering. The Prime Minister's saying 70 cents a day in a tax cut in 15 months' time, and I just don't think families can afford to wait 15 months after the damage that Mr Albanese has done. Interest rates have gone up 12 times, and the cost of electricity is up by 32%. The cost of gas is up by 34% under Mr Albanese, and there is a much better way for our country, and we can get our country back on track by making the right economic decisions and keeping our country safe.
Mr Reinhardt's operations chief has said that industry is whinging and moaning when it comes to tariffs. Do you agree? Is industry overreacting?
Well, again, if you're applying an effective 10% tax on any part of the economy, it makes the cost 10% higher for the consumer, or the business has to wear that cost. And if the business has to wear that cost, then potentially it means less people employed in that business. These aren't basic economic principles that the Prime Minister understands, but that's the reality. And the Prime Minister could have been dealing with the United States from January. They could have been making the Trump administration more aware of the value that we bring to the relationship with the United States and what we can benefit from in the relationship. But the Prime Minister didn't do that. Mr Rudd, the ambassador, personal appointment, a captain's call by Mr Albanese, can't even get into the West Wing. So what chance do we have of helping those small businesses if we've got a Prime Minister who I think has dropped the ball in relation to a very significant issue?
Mr. Dutton, speaking of small businesses, Labor saying they will extend the instant asset write-off. Is that, is this policy from Anthony Albanese enough for those small businesses?
Well, let's have a look at a local tradie in Western Sydney. Under Mr Albanese, on budget night, was told that you could have an instant asset write-off for a purchase, but capped at $1,000. Now, the government doesn't believe in this, and I think what they've done now by flipping it temporarily to $20,000 is to try and patch up a problem of their own making to get them through the election. And then I think it reverts back to $1,000. What we've got is a $30,000 instant asset write-off available for small businesses. So what it means is that the coffee shop can go out and purchase new equipment and write that off as a deductible expense in that year. Under Mr Albanese's plan, businesses will delay the purchase of equipment, and therefore it hits the economy. A tradie who can go out and purchase A ute can do so under our scheme much more effectively than they can under the Labor scheme. And the other thing too to point out is that we're not going to have Labor's car tax. We're not going to have Labor's ute tax, which tradies and others in Western Sydney and right across the country will be paying under this government. So that's the
clarify on this. Mr. Dutton. Sorry, you said you were not going to have tradies car tax and tradies ute tax. So you're going to abolish the NBETs? Is that the point there? And if I could just prompted that, my actual question was when the coalition left office last time, the budget had a 10-year structural deficit. We're almost at a 10-year structural deficit now. When do you expect that you will be able to bring the budget back to some kind of sustainable structural balance?
Well, look, I just have a look at the track record of the two parties. Labor always taxes, they always spend, they always run up debt. They've spent an extra $425 billion, which is why interest rates are where they are. And if you keep putting pressure on inflation, interest rates will be higher. And this is the point after the election, when you get a big spending Labor Greens government, interest rates will go higher under Mr Albanese. Interest rates will always be lower under a coalition government. Second point is that under this budget, they point out that they go to $1.2 trillion of debt. That is a record, and not one that the Labor Party should be proud of, but one that future generations will have to deal with. It's about $125,000 per household of debt. So we're saddling the next generation with a lot of Labor debt. The next point I'd make is that Liberal governments always clean up Labor's mess. We always have done in the past. John Howard did it, Tony Abbott did it. We will do it again. We got the budget back into balance, and we did that successfully, and we provided support to families. Labor has trashed the budget again, as they do, and that is what leads to higher inflation, which is why people are paying 30% more for their groceries. It's why they're paying 34% more for gas. It's why they're paying more for everything under Mr Albanese. And we won't proceed, as I say, with the ute tax and the car tax that the Prime Minister doesn't want to talk anything about, but that is going to be felt in a hip pocket hit by this Prime Minister after the election, because the price of cars, the price of utes will go up under Labor.
Peter Dutton.